Assalamu alaikum, good evening, and welcome to tonight's episode of Talking Point. I'm your host, Syed Neaz Ahmad. In our studios today, we have a distinguished journalist who needs no introduction. He is well known throughout Britain and Europe and also in Bangladesh. He is none other than Mr. Syed Nahas Pasha, Editor-in-Chief of Janamat Weekly and Curry Life magazine. He is Vice President of Commonwealth Journalists Association, former President of London Bangla Press Club. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you.
How are you today?
Yeah, I'm fine, except the weather outside. It's rainy and gloomy weather.
You have been in the field of journalism for a long, long time, but this journey began somewhere long time ago in Sylhet. I would like you to at least describe and narrate in short the journey from Ishan to Janamat Weekly.
No, it's, well, it is one of those things. I mean, I always, when I was young, always used to read a lot. And the environment I grew up with, the family what I grew up with, I can remember.
Your father was a government officer?
No, my father lived in this country, but my maternal uncle and all, they were all in Bangladesh, and they were on the field of journalism. So I mean, in politics and of course literature and other things. And so I used to read. I remember started reading something like a newspaper like Sangbad and Purbodesh in 60s when I was maybe 9-10 years old. And from then on, once you read newspaper, you know your environment, and you know the whole world is open to you. And that's how it started. And my first writing appeared in a newspaper, weekly newspaper. I think it was one of the oldest weekly newspaper in our subcontinent, called Jugabari in Sylhet. And Jugabari had a young page, obviously for younger children.
Writers, yeah.
And they used to have a monthly gathering of young and old people who write, and that's how it started. So from a small poems to, that was the beginning. And then of course I was, while I was in the school and college, always been involved with, writings or getting the special, what we call Shankolon for Ekushe and others. And then.
But when you came over to London,
yeah, I came in.
You joined a bank.
Yes, I did. I did. I did when I came to UK in mid-70s. Of course, I was young, and I left Bangladesh while I was studying at the college, and then briefly I worked for a year in our Sonali Bank in the north in Oldham. And then my writing, I didn't leave my writing. I was still writing for Janamat, and there was a newspaper which was edited by Ghaffar Bhai, was Bangla Dak. And so after a while, about a year or so, I worked in bank, and then I thought, well, like everybody else, I thought I should have my own business. I went to the curry industry, worked in some restaurants, and then at one point I had my own business. Then after about 14 years, I packed up, because I was always in writings and readings, and very much aware of politics and other things. And I remember in 80s I had a business in the north, and mid-80s, I think it was 1984 was the time when Margaret Thatcher came to power for the second time. And in this country that time, the union was very, very strong. And now we have seen of winter of discontent and others in 70s, the strikes, British Leyland and all this. I can remember those days.
The coal miners.
Yeah, coal miners. And 84 was the time when she wanted to crush the union of coal miners. The leader of the miners' union was Arthur Scargill. Arthur Scargill was a strong, he was a leftist, obviously. And she came to power with the agenda of, crushing the union. And there was a year-long strike in 1984 for, miners' strike. And at that time, the whole economy was depending on the mine. Of course, there was, in Yorkshire and Nottinghamshire, Wales, Scotland, all these places, there were a lot of.
Also, it was perhaps the main source of energy.
Yeah, exactly. And that was, and there was a debate at that time that, we should bring coal from Europe and overseas. It might, it must be cheaper or something. Anyway, that was the politics, and that time, the whole year-long strike, and she didn't compromise with the union, and that killed my business as well, because I was in a area which, there was mining area. And then I moved to London, and I said, that's it, I'm not going back to restaurant trade.
So the writer in you brought you back?
Yeah, exactly. And then I joined a newspaper here in 89 called Notundin, which is no longer exist. From then on, I'm one newspaper to another, and I have been with this.
When did you join Janamat?
About 17 years ago. I joined Janamat because, obviously, since I started working for other newspapers and writing, I wrote in Janamat even before, since I came to this country, and in fact, I was just going through the archive to do something about our 50 years, and I suddenly found one write-up which I wrote in 1978.
Well, we started, and we forgot to mention that Janamat celebrates its 50 years. So it has joined, not Mr. Syed Pasha, but Janamat has joined a 50-plus club.
Yes, yes. I sometimes say that it is as old as me. Yeah, we just had our 50th birthday on 21st of February, which is, I believe, it's a very big achievement for a newspaper.
For any magazine, any newspaper,
yeah.
To continuously publish for 50 years.
It is. Even, Bangladesh going to be, 50 years.
48 years.
For 48 years, and we'll be celebrating soon our 50th, year in Bangladesh. But even in Bangladesh, a newspaper, 50 years old newspapers, I don't know whether except Ittefaq or and Sangbad, I guess. There are not many newspapers is that old. So in that way, Janamat is 50 years for a BME or ethnic minority newspaper, with initially started with maybe a small readership, with no modern technology like nowadays. It was I think really struggle that time, but surviving 50 years is, I think it's amazing, and we feel proud about it.
But the motivation to establish or start a news weekly in 1969, when the Liberation War was going on, the struggle was going on, for four persons who would pool their energy, resources, because there was a demand for news.
Yeah. But see, the thing is that I'm old enough to remember late 60s. I can remember, I can go back up to the 65 India-Pakistan war. But in 1969, there was, uprising in Bangladesh, Gano Bhutan, with, there was, people wanted to know what's happening, and the politics in then East Pakistan, is touched up to here, and people wanted to know what's happening in East Pakistan. And it's also, I think it was also the time was something, there were Bengali started arriving in this country late 50s or mid 50s, and people were not sure, the expatriate Bangladeshis or Bengalis were not sure whether they are going to stay or going back to, the Pakistan then, And so I think Janamot played a vital role on that, that we are either here for, And that's why in 1969 when 4 friends got together and there was other newspapers, but didn't sort of, stayed long because there was a newspaper called the Shaddak. Our late Tasadduk Bhai was, the pioneer getting the Shaddak out. So it didn't survive long. And then he donated that Remington typewriter. It's so heavy. We still have the typewriter, in our office. And so he donated the typewriter to those 4 friends. One of them wasn't even Bengali. He was a, nationals of Fiji. And they got together and they got Janamot out. And I heard stories on that time. They the people who were involved with the Janamot or people who were supporter of a newspaper, they were just getting the newspaper out and taking it to people, themselves to read it. And that's how it started. I think one or 2 first issues, even the headline was handwritten, and if we think of, 69, I really, commend their bravery.
We have come a long way from those days.
A long way from 69. I mean, I have seen Janamot first in, I guess it was 1972. My father came to this country in 1961. And after Bangladesh independence, he sort of went to, when he went to Bangladesh, and he took the newspaper from
Those days
UK.
there were no direct flights from here to Dhaka. People were going via Calcutta, McDonnell Douglas.
The people were going by a different place, and I think the first, they used to call it British Caledonian or something.
I remember.
But he took a Janamot as
as a souvenir.
And it was something, it's different because the type of paper, it's printed and it's not like what we used to see in then that time. And it was, very interesting seeing 12 page or 14, I think 16 page.
The writings were very daring, very very responsive.
Very, because in 1971, Janamot was the only Bengali newspaper which people rely on news. Janamot created a lot of opinion, in terms of, the movement, what happens in the independent movements, in the people who are involved with the movement here. But I think it's, it had really strong. Even now, 50 years old, I have been in this country 42, 43 years, and every decade, Janamot had influence. Even the Bengali media here, all the Bengali media has influence over people, strong influence. Now we have TV and everything, but
Right.
that time newspaper was something big.
Right, sir. We need to take a break.
Sure.
Thank you for being with us. We need to take this short break. Don't go away. We'll be back soon.